Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Welcome, superstarters, to the Start Something Show. As always, I am Tina Dietz, and excited to share with you today our guest, James Erdt, the visionary and founder behind several companies and social entrepreneur who made it back from not only drug addiction and abuse, but spinal surgery and several near-death experiences. We're going to have his story a little later in the show today. But I want to start today with our Superstarter of the Month. Our Superstarter of the Month is Dr. Bradley. Dr. Bradley is a chiropractor in the Western New York area, and he came to me to make sure that he could have it all. He was in the process of getting married. He was buying a house. He was looking after his health, building his chiropractic practice, and also at the same time starting a corporate wellness program for area companies. So I was just incredibly impressed by how coachable Dr. Bradley was and how much he was able to implement every day. I just kept giving it to him, and he kept taking it and making it happen. And in less than 6 months, he doubled his practice, got married to his now beautiful wife, closed on a house, and also got his first corporate clients in a very large company so that he could make a difference with all of their employees in Western New York. So, Dr. Bradley, you are our Superstarter of the Month. Congratulations. Now, you don't have to be one of my clients to be a Superstarter of the Month. You just have to be awesome. Just go to our contact page on the website, thestartsomethingshow.com, and throw in a comment, say, hey, I did something awesome. I want to be a Superstarter of the Month. And we pick people every month to join us to be our Superstarter of the Month. So go ahead and get over to the website and tell us about your awesomeness and your accomplishments, because we want to hear all about it. Well, Superstarters, today on the Start Something Show, we are going to be talking with James Erdt, who is the visionary and founder behind Dynamo Entrepreneur, Joy Zone Incorporated, and Fitness Star International, all of which are innovative, socially responsible organizations dedicated to guiding people of all ages in fitness, nutrition, and inspiration. James is going to share his story today of overcoming addictions, negative environments, spinal surgery, and near-death situations that he dealt with as a young man to support and inspire us on our own life paths. He is actively involved in international philanthropy, and he and I share some mutual passions in that area, so we'll talk about that today as well. And James shows others how to find the passion, the courage, the strength, and most importantly, the resources to live out your dreams while contributing to a better world in the process. His main focus is to guide others to become their best selves personally and professionally in the now, so that they too can support their own circle of influence and lead by example. James, thanks for starting something with me today.
Hello, Tina. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I know. James, you are very quickly becoming one of my favorite human beings.
Oh, ditto that. Go team.
Go team, exactly. Well, let's jump right into this. Take us back to when you were getting started. You have quite a journey to share, but when did you know you wanted to change your life and start something?
Well, Tina, up until the age of 15, 16, if we were to take it back a little bit further, I was a good student. I was a great artist. I had some great marks and played a lot of sports. And then it all changed with what seemed to be a minor decision at the time. It turned out to be a major life-altering choice. And got involved with some of the wrong kids at the time in high school, and I smoked my first joint of marijuana. Led to a lot of hard drugs, led to crime, led to doing time in prison as a young man. Was charged as a 17-year-old. However, I was convicted as an 18-year-old. And, everything that goes along with that, soon thereafter discovering the phenomenon of raving, nightclub. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I was hopelessly addicted to substance abuse. 4 of my friends had actually died from drug overdoses, and 1 friend died from gang violence. I decided to consciously make a shift to better my health and to become a personal trainer. I went from becoming a personal trainer to master trainer to elite plus trainer to fitness manager, then eventually nominated for Canadian Personal Trainer and Canadian Fitness Manager of the Year. Soon thereafter becoming the top revenue generating trainer in the history of the largest fitness company in Canada. And I don't really share this to toot my own horn or to glamorize drug abuse in any way. I share this with you to inspire those that are out there who are making some of the silly decisions that I made as a young man, and to inspire positive and proactive decisions to lead to better and safer lives, especially for those youth that are out there, and to make us aware of what is out there in our high schools. So I've actually just started a journey and a speaking journey across the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, to speak to the kids in the high schools about the power of their choices. So shortly thereafter, at 30 years of age, I was burying my best friend from drug overdose, and my daughter looked at me and she was like, "Dad, you're either going to die or you're going to end up in prison." And it hit me like a ton of bricks.
How old was she when she said that to you?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm 42 now. She's 21, so would have been 12 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So a young lady, I have a beautiful 21-year-old daughter. She's in university, 4th year now in psychology, and I have a handsome little fella, a 4-year-old. Absolute greatest teacher in the entire world.
They are. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And I started my inspirational journey. I learned about the law of attraction and living in the now, and got inspired by some great individuals like Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle and Esther and Jerry Hicks. And for the past 13 years, I've been 100% clean and only putting good energy into the universe, and have built 3 international reputable brands.
That's beautiful. I want to go back to something you said, because, it's funny. I asked this question of my guests, and everybody goes back to childhood. Everybody does. And it's always important, I think, to remember that so much of who we are is not in our adulthood, but these decisions that we made much, much earlier than that. But I want to go back to that moment where you were making this shift and making this choice to live a healthy life and to move away from addiction and away from drugs and gang violence and all of that. Was there any trigger? Was there any set of thoughts that you had that made that possible? Because, honestly, that's a big shift. It's a huge shift. And a big realization is ultimately, when I had my aha moment, is that I'm in more control than I thought I was. The biggest shift was to stop playing the victim role and the blame game. When I really took responsibility for my own actions and everything that happened to me, or, the situations that I put myself in, when I really started to take responsibility for that and give up something called excusitis, that disease that I love it. That's great.
Suffer from, that's when things really started to pick up momentum and change. And then ultimately, Gandhi's famous saying, you must be the change you wish to see in the world, is something that I have very, very large, big painting of on my living room wall to remind me every single day that it's so, so important to lead by example. You need to be that change you're looking for. You need to put those rose-colored glasses on and the filters to see the beauty in the world. If you want to wear those black shades, you're going to see all kinds of gray. And ultimately we're big, big magnets, and learning about the laws of attraction and the different frequencies that we put out. If you throw a punch into the universe, guess what's coming back?
Yeah, exactly.
Put good energy into the universe. And, after 13 years of doing it, things have come now full circle for me, and we're picking up a lot of momentum in my current business, and obviously attracting wonderful people such as yourself.
And amen to that. So I'll take that on. Yeah. All right. So we all, of course, deal with setbacks. So kind of moving beyond that piece of your past where you were dealing with obviously very, significant shaping factors in your relationships and your health and well-being. But, as you moved on to being an entrepreneur, something we want people to understand here is that successful people are not immune to failure, and failure is not a dirty word. So we want to just take all the charge out of that. So what setbacks and failures have you had to deal with professionally or personally since you became an entrepreneur, and how did you deal with them? How did they kind of shape where you are now?
Well, it's a gold mine. The gold mine in failure that most entrepreneurs that have actually made it to the next level, unless they've won the lottery, have gotten extremely lucky. It shapes us. It shapes us who we are as business professionals. It shapes us, in our personal life. As entrepreneurs, we don't really turn off. It's kind of one and the same. It's very challenging for an entrepreneur to turn off. So we go full tilt. We jump off a lot of cliffs. We grow our wings on the way down. Sometimes they don't manage to grow before we hit the bottom, which has happened a few times. I've sold over $1 million in 2 different industries. I've spent close to that. So ultimately, when you remove your expenses from the amount that you've actually made, you're technically living under the poverty line when you add it all up, but you're learning this massive abundance of what works, what doesn't work in a practical nature. It's not like a theoretical university or school that you're going to. It's a practical school of hard knocks where you're out there and you're learning firsthand, with the vaccine basically, acronym, I should say, visually, auditory, kinesthetic, and that's ultimately how we learn as human beings. So some of the really great realizations that I've made, the biggest realization that I've made from my past company, which was called Fitness Star International. We had 4 divisions, a model search, a magazine, an agency, and a social network. I actually retired from the company as CEO after running it for 6 years, about 6 months ago, and I just accepted a complete buyout offer for my remaining 51% shares.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Big difference between that company and the one I'm running now, which is called Dynamo Entrepreneur, supporting entrepreneurs to build their foundations wide and deep to weather those storms in life and then ultimately to give back that extra energy, money, excess bandwidth, whatever it may be. The big difference was I was the company for those 6 years. You remove me, the company didn't exist. The way we're building it now is you ultimately build it to sell it. So if something does happen to you, you get hit by a bus, heaven forbid, or you end up in the mountains in Tibet and, for whatever reason, you're not involved with the company anymore. It goes on and you build a culture versus just building a leader. So I have 10 different divisions. However, each of the managers of those divisions are 50-50 equals with me in their division. Right. So there's no upline or downline. There's no hierarchy. We're all equals. We're all working together as professionals. And the past company, it was the Fitness Star way. With Dynamo, it's an umbrella where, Tina would be an individual. She has her products. Joe, Larry, Molly, Sue, whoever they are all having their own baby. They're building their own babies, utilizing the tools and the skills and the products that we have to service the world with. So we're all focusing on ourselves. Ultimately, I teach them to pick up their firstname, and focus on you, Inc. We're all still a team, all moving forward in the same direction with positivity and building, great community and doing a lot of pay it forward principle type, philanthropy. So what I would sum it up to is relationship capital. The one thing that I've learned, the highs and the lows of, is it's not about your bricks and mortar. It's not about, what you've built, visually online. It's about that relationship capital that you have not only with your staff and your team, but also your clientele. Without a solid, strong relationship capital in all of your relationships in business, you have absolutely nothing. Right?
Yes, that's truer words were never spoken.
I focus so much on the bricks and mortar and the bling bling and the bells and whistles and, relationships came, relationships went, and it's tough. It's tough really putting that energy into getting somebody back up to speed, especially really, really, really good people. So, my focus now with this new project is to allow them to be themselves and to grow under an umbrella which is basically focusing on their baby. So there's no real need to have an exit strategy or to do something else. My father told me something when I was very young, and it was a line that went along something like this. It was greed breeds competition. Greed breeds competition. Whether it's a staff member or it's, friends or family, if there's in any way, shape, or form that you're greedy with those individuals within your relationship capital, they're going to look for an exit strategy or become a naysayer or become jealous. So when you do your absolute best to keep those relationships at a 50-50 equal type relationship, they're going to prosper. They're going to last very, very long. So it's always a win-win.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because greed comes from scarcity and comes from fear. So when we reduce or eliminate, fear and scarcity, then the greed doesn't arise, and then we have cooperation instead of competition. And like in the book, Wallace Wattles, about becoming rich, and he said, a greedy person will climb up a ladder and then push it down and not allow anybody to rise up. But, the way to do it is actually to build the ladder so that people can come up behind you or with you.
Yeah.
And I love this concept in social entrepreneurship, and I'm so happy to see it thriving inside of what you're doing, because together we can all make more happen. It's that ripple effect. And then it's also, as entrepreneurs, pointing back to my superstarters listening, consider that the more concerns you have about control and the way it looks and the way it has to go, the less of an impact you're actually going to be able to make on the world and the areas that are important to you. So you got to allow that flow back and forth in, just like James is doing with having this, umbrella of Dynamo Entrepreneur that now has the capability and the capacity to expand as far as it wants to go without any limits. And that's just so brilliant.
Yeah, total abundance mentality, no competition. It's all creation. And having a group of people uniting, light workers, good energy, good positive people, and we're enabling them by strengthening their foundations, putting that oxygen mask back on the entrepreneur. We have a 5 F word system that we follow. It's food, fitness, family, finances, and fun, with a bonus word of forgiveness, forgiving yourself and moving on. But food, fitness, family, finances, and fun. And in that order, because it's very, very important to really focus, on what you're putting into your system and what you're putting into your body, how you're getting out there and moving around and staying active, use it or lose it. We are what we eat. And then you'll be able to take care of your family and that circle of influence even more. However, having that financial stability and going out there and having fun really, really rounds out the individual. And when you're more well-balanced on those 5 F words, you are operating at an optimal level, at peak performance, and you can give back that excess that will inevitably come because you're operating at your best self.
Great. And certainly way better than the F word we often focus on in business or in making change.
You know what? We wanted to make it fun for the kids, right? So we're like, they all think
that's the F words.
Not so.
Yeah, that's a riot. I love it. That's great. That's really, really cool. I'd love to come back to that when we talk later in the Backstage Pass interview.
Sure.
Now, what would you say, you mentioned earlier about entrepreneurs being risk takers, and it's true. We're often jumping off of cliffs and figuring out how to, land on the way down. But what would you say is the biggest business risk you've ever taken?
Oh, wow. The biggest one, I've found a lot of comfort and security in rising through the ranks of the big box gym industry. So, I went from being a personal trainer more to the business side of the industry, and I've worked for about 5 larger companies in Canada over a 17-year career where I've risen to becoming the number one income generator for those companies and pretty much smashing the records that were there before me. So I found security in something that I was really, really, really good at. So I became what was called like a sweeper. So I would go into like a mom and pop gym and basically hire, fire, create systems, create uniforms, create programs, do all the contracts up, build a really solid, stable training team, and then blow past their 100%, profit goals for the year. And then I would move on to another gym. So it was kind of a position that I did for quite some time, and it was very, very easy for me. And I was making really, really decent money. I was making 6 figures, steadily. But then there was that itch. It was just like, how do you break that, 7-figure mark? It's like now I've kind of accomplished the 6-figure mark is like, and that took me a good 10 years to figure out. But when I really got rocking and rolling, I turned it into a system that I now teach trainers and fitness professionals. It's called 6-Figure PT. So now I'm crossing over and I'm doing the 6-Figure Success Blueprint Workshop for entrepreneurs to show them how to stack verticals. So by stacking verticals, they have different systems. Take, for example, a personal trainer. He has his nutrition. He or she has his nutrition, has his personal training services, his boot camp, all these different verticals that they can stack up to total that 6 figures. So I did that for many, many years. And then I thought, okay, well, you know what, I want to do this in the entrepreneurial sector. And the only way to really do that is to give up my security of what I've been doing for the past 17 years. So I'm walking the walk, talking the talk. And I just recently did that about 2 years ago and accomplished that in the entrepreneurial world without lining somebody else's pockets. So now I'm teaching that exact same system. You know, I took that huge risk without having any backup, and I grew my wings on the way down. And it was scary. It was nerve-wracking and scary because you're used to that steady income coming in. However, I used the burn the boats model.
Yes,
have you
exactly.
heard that analogy? The burn.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So you burn the boats, and you don't really have anything to fall back on. I mean, you can always get back into the industry if you had to, but ultimately I didn't have a job to go back to. You know, we all know what job stands for.
Oh, remind them.
Just over broke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And that doesn't necessarily have to refer to money either. Sometimes it's the feeling of being broken that is the worst part of that 9-to-5 or the corporate mentality that people are dealing with. But it's that addiction to the steady paycheck and the fear of what's going to happen that, you know, keeps us kind of stuck in that spot. But like you found yourself, ultimately for an entrepreneur, it becomes more painful to not step into your vision than to go ahead and do it. How did your friends and family react when you stepped off from that steady, secure position into doing your own thing?
Interesting question.
That's a very telling response.
I had the best of both worlds. I had a mother that was completely entrepreneurial. She ran a big modeling agency and modeling schools. I've been on like runways of the fashion world since I've been like 3 years old, you know, and she was a huge philanthropist, you know, raised tons of money for the battered women and children and just different women causes. For the Cancer Society, she kept Grand Theatre London open where we lived in London, Ontario, Canada. And my father, on the other hand, he was very economically sound. You know, he was very frugal. He was a master at saving money and didn't spend a lot. So I had both dynamics. My mother, she, bless her soul, she passed away 2 years ago, and that's when I actually took my leap in honor of her. And all of the philanthropy that I do and the charity that I do, it's in her name. So I actually have an organization that I'm creating right now. The underlying name is the Rosemary Erdt Foundation. There's a public name called DigiGiver that I'm evolving. And then my father, he was typically shocked. You know, what are you doing? You know, there's security there. You know, you're putting into your pension and, you know, paying your taxes that way and the traditional type security speech, you know. But there's no such thing as security anymore. You know, he comes from a different generation. You know, I love him dearly and he's my greatest hero ever. It's just we are in a different generation. Security is gone. Like, look at all the big stores that are closing. Like, we just had the Target across the street closed down. Target Canada gone. A big company like that not being able to sustain itself in the bricks and mortar industry. And I had one of my good friends. He was the general manager of the store. He would have never have guessed that all of a sudden he's looking for a job. You know, so there's really not a lot of security anymore. So this is the golden age of the entrepreneur that we're in right now, and I'm a big advocate for it. However, I would love to be one of the pioneers for the next bleeding edge generation, which is the social entrepreneur. The golden age of the social entrepreneur is coming quickly. And those are enterprising entrepreneurs, so they're not charities. They're enterprising social entrepreneurs that are living well. They're living great lives, but they're really giving back a big portion of their bandwidth, energy, money, and they're creating a better world.
Yes, exactly. And what I find very interesting about that, you and I are of an age, James, so we're kind of on that tail end of Generation X, as it were. And I see a lot of folks in our generation who were kind of essentially brought up not to be super trusting of authority and to the whole do what you love and the money will follow mentality. And you got to go to college. Those were like some of the big things that we were ingrained across our generation. But a lot of us not being willing to settle now at the age that we're at for not having it all, and really passing that on, I see, to the younger generations and seeing a very strong desire of lifting people up and making sure it's all getting paid forward because we want everything to be around for a long time. So let's take that into our next question here. What's one of your favorite moments in this entrepreneurial journey of yours? Like a moment of brilliance, or like one of your favorite moments in the last couple of years?
Very easy one for me. I've never won anything in my life. I've been a fitness model competitor, having come from having 2 spinal surgeries and drug addictions to taking it to the epitome of the opposite end and extreme health. I placed second, I placed third. I had this burning desire to speak, to become a speaker. I just felt this calling. It's something greater than me that I can't necessarily explain. A lot of coincidences that kind of pushed me towards the speaking stage. So I joined a speaker's talent search back in 2008. And it was called the Speaker's Gold Motivational Speaker Talent Search. And there was 20 of speakers from across Canada that were selected through an audition process. I remember I was number 17, and it was audience voting. I ended up winning that competition, and when my name was announced, it was like the highlight of my life. I was like, wow, this is like the biggest sign and signal to move forward in this profession. I went from, making $500 to $1,000 a speech to making $5,000, and I would have to work 160 hours as a personal trainer to make the same I was making in 1 hour, right? So completely enabling me to create and to give back and to really focus on what I love to do, which is plurk. It's a word that I use, plurk. Play work.
I love it.
Play work.
Play work.
Plurk. If I'm not plurking, I'm not doing it. So
as long as you don't twerk while you plurk. Okay, good.
Yeah, I plurk all day long. So that kind of ignited my passion for speaking. And then I've started working on other vehicles, such as becoming an internet marketer, a success coach, a writer. I've got a couple books coming out. However, speaking is my favorite vehicle. And I'm a big believer that you need to have a little bit of skills in all of the vehicles because everybody receives the information differently. However, speaking happens to be my one strength, and I'm focusing on it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to go where the energy is.
It's true.
So, and that's great confirmation, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I know. And I know that there's always this energy of what's next and let's get started and let's move, let's try something new. But if we were to kind of, take you back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial roots or anywhere that you'd like to start, because we want to leave our listeners to meet them where they're at in their journey. So if you were just starting out today and you had your knowledge, but not the resources that you've developed over the years, what would be some of the first things that you would do to start something from scratch today?
To start something from scratch today, first off, I would do a little bit of a self-analysis to kind of figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are. May I share a tool, an online tool?
Yeah, please go right ahead.
I created an app called the lifebalancesurvey.com, just how it sounds, lifebalancesurvey.com. It's you can go on your computer, your mobile phone. It will actually spit out a star graph at the end of it that will basically show you your fitness, food, family, finances, and fun level. So there's a graph that's a star. Ultimately, you want to create this perfect star. So that will kind of really figure out where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and you can kind of live in a more balanced way or focus on living in a more balanced way in order to move forward strong. I highly suggest, if you are in that job and you're looking to make a move, to really, really focus on strengthening your foundations, at least focusing on progressively moving towards the direction of strengthening each of the weaker areas before you make the leap. So when you do make the leap, you can actually weather the storm for, let's say 3 to 6 months. It really depends on how confident you are in regards to your idea or what you want to actually put out there or what support you've actually already generated. I started as a part-time entrepreneur, kind of getting my feet wet. And when I actually made the leap, I knew that within 6 months, everything would be rocking and rolling. So it was very, very confident already that, I wasn't going to jeopardize, my 2 children or my family environment in any way, shape, or form. So that's very, very, very important. To basically go for it and just put yourself out there and try it is the only way you're going to know. I mean, simply by, thinking about it or hoping it's going to manifest is not going to happen. The biggest key to my success, and if I had to put it into one word, is action. Action, action, action. Massive action towards your goals, towards your dreams. Yes, you're not going to, hit every ball out of the park, but the ones that you do, they will be more fulfilling and worth more to you and more rewarding in your life, than anything that a day-to-day 9-to-5 job is going to offer you. So it's just go for it. Go for it and, be confident in your dreams. Believe in what you know is true in your heart. We were giving this tool called the emotional guidance system before we came into this human phase. Call it your feelings. Fear, despair, grief, anger, very low resonating vibrations, abundance, love, joy. Joy is true north. You want to migrate towards higher vibrating, higher resonating frequencies and feelings, and that is your guide. If you're feeling any fear, despair, grief, anger, those really low resonating vibrations, that is a clear sign that you should not be in that environment. Get rid of the people that are negative, send them love, say goodbye, move on, find yourself a positive environment, and really, really listen to your heart and your feelings, because they're going to tell you the answers.
All right. So let's have that URL one more time for that assessment tool, because that sounds really, really cool. And I'll make sure also that it is on our website for everybody to click on and use and enjoy.
Yeah. So basically it's the lifebalancesurvey.com.
Cool.
How it sounds. And then we've got our new Dynamo Tribe launching April 1st. You can check it out at dynamotribe.com on April 1st under dynamoentrepreneur.com, where hopefully we'll see Tina.
Yeah, you definitely will. And so go out there and do that assessment, folks. And you heard it from James. Get clear about what your strengths are and what your challenges are, and get into action. Just start trying things, start having conversations, get out there and surround yourself with the people who are going to lift you up and you lift them up too. So James, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Sure.
We're going to have more from James on the Start Something Show website with the Backstage Pass, and he's going to give us a lot more information, teaching, and tools about making positive change in your life, keeping inspiration alive, and also keeping the wellness and well-being in the mix as part of being an entrepreneur, which is often where we tend to fall flat as entrepreneurs. So I know I'm looking forward to that. Join us there. And James, for the time being, though, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.